Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. On today's programme, I have the pleasure of meeting with an essayist, a historian, a poet, a fervent supporter of the Palestinian cause, and also currently the Palestinian ambassador to UNESCO. I'm speaking, of course, of Elias Sambar. Thanks ever so much for joining us. We're going to come on to that crucial vote at UNESCO in just a moment. I wanted to ask you, first of all, though, on a more personal note, the Palestinian cause is, of course, one that has been linked to your personal history. You were one when the creation of Israel forced your family to flee to Lebanon. Tell us, first of all, what the cause means to you and all that's happened these last few weeks, the change in the attitudes towards that cause, what it means from your point of view.
Well, there is a real change within the very large opinions around the world, and this has been the result of years of militancy, of sacrifices, and of explanations. What has changed is the fact that for decades we had, in order to get some support, in order to get some comprehension from our counterparts, to explain, to justify, to give arguments, to say, this is why we are asking for, this is why we long to get this. Now, what is very interesting, and it happened all of a sudden, we didn't see it coming, is that we are no more asked to explain the why. We immediately, when we say we need this, we get this support. And this has been a change within the mainly Western opinions. This has been a very, very deep change. It's an accumulation. You see, we have been working for. It's like the stratas when you dig, and you have for every period of time you have a strata, and every strata is upon another one. So this is what is happening, and this gives to a certain the Palestinian demands are becoming, for most of the people, natural, if I may say. It is absolutely natural to have these demands. And when any cause gets to this situation, when it becomes natural, it goes normally by itself, nothing can stop it. This is what happened in 48, in fact. The whole world saw as absolutely natural to see the emergence of a Jewish state. And it did emerge. And the Palestinians are in quite a similar situation today. And
it's from a very low starting point, since you've written yourself about the word Palestine, which it took so long to find, because it was a state not so much occupied as erased.
You know, if we want to have a summary in one sentence of the whole issue of this conflict, for the Palestinians, it was how to reconquer our own name. Because what happened in 48, this is the essence of the absence that resulted from the expulsion of the Palestinians, what we call the Nakba in 48, was in fact that many forces tried to erase our name. Palestinians do not exist, Palestine never existed. And so the whole struggle was in fact to bring back your name. And when you bring back your name, you bring back your presence, and you bring back your visibility. We're coming from an absence, not from occupation. We were in the disappearance, the exile for the vast majority of Palestinians, which is a different situation of our citizens who live in the West Bank or Gaza and East Jerusalem. They didn't disappear. They were occupied in 67. But what happened in 48 was a disappearance. And so we are, and this is what I said at UNESCO, this is the last day of the absence. The absent is back.
Now, of course, that you talk about that long road, the long road that it's been. The turning point was this decision to seek recognition at the United Nations, at UNESCO. This crucial vote last week, which has taken years of work on your part, what exactly does it mean?
It means, first of all, that we can fulfill all our duties and get all what we are entitled to get from UNESCO in the fields of UNESCO: education, science, culture, world heritage, in order to preserve our sites. And we have very important sites for humanity. This is one. But there is another dimension, which is not directly connected to UNESCO, but it does come out from this vote. We have been accepted as members, as a country member, not as a state. State does exist. It was proclaimed in 88. We have already 128 embassies around the world and 28 missions, diplomatic missions, which means 156 diplomatic relations. So we have the recognition as a state. What is new is that you get in as a country, and the country is not a territory. This is the main change. And it might be not very, very visible for the time being, but this is in fact this is the victory. Not only to get to UNESCO, because we were already in UNESCO and we were acting in all the fields of culture education. We'll be acting more, but this is not the main issue. The main issue is that through this recognition in UNESCO, the country Palestine has been admitted. And a country is not a territory, as I say. A country, you know, that it has a border and it has a capital. A territory occupied is de facto always a disputed one. You have to prove, the occupied have to prove at every minute. If they say we have a border, the occupier will say, who said you have a border? This is territory. If they say we have a capital, the occupier will say, who says you have a capital? This is territory. It's not the country. What has been achieved is the presence of a country, the country Palestine, and this means of a people, not only of an apparatus, the Palestinian National Authority or the PLO, or a people. This is the main issue.
There are also consequences, of course, for UNESCO itself of the vote, and that is the fact that the Americans will be cutting off the funds that they provide to it.
So, to be very, very frank, and I'm not naive, we're facing a paradox. The US stopped defunding 22% of the budget, of the regular budget. At the same time, and not yesterday, this happened yesterday afternoon, they were elected as members of the executive committee of UNESCO, which is like the Security Council in New York, which is the government of UNESCO. So how can a member state that is member of the executive committee punish the agency it is going to be part of, and it is going even to lead? I don't know how they are going to manage in this situation. And many countries were asking themselves yesterday afternoon this question: how could you punish, retaliate against an institution, and then 24 hours later say, I'm going to be part of its government, of its governing body?
Another consequence of the vote, leaving aside the Americans for a moment, is the Israeli government, of course. They're freezing asset transfers. They're increasing the speed of settlement activity. Is there not a danger that by pursuing this course, the Palestinians are essentially hardening positions?
No, you see, we have been facing this question since we got the vote, in fact. And the problem with this question is that it has a presupposé, it has a basis in order to make it rational, which is Palestinians live in a chalet in the Swiss mountain, in a very, very beautiful surrounding, pure, fresh and pure air, and suddenly things are going to get bad. What do the Israelis do today that they didn't do yesterday? Settlements, they never stopped. Cutting olive trees, they never stopped. Blowing houses, they never stopped. Building the wall, they never stopped. There is nothing new. And when they said we're going to retaliate, we were asking ourselves, what are they going to invent? There is nothing new. And they say you're going to harden the position. Well, don't you think they are already in a very, very hard position with a minister like Mr. Lieberman or a prime minister like Benjamin Netanyahu? It's already very, very hard line. And the whole country, in fact, Israel, is today, in my opinion, hostage of the settlers. In fact, the settlers are doing all the decisions. If you look to the general policy, the settlers are in command in Israel. So it is true that some problems could become, let's say, heavier, or they could multiply the units in the settlements. But for the 10 last days, we've had 1,200, 1,100, and 1,400 new settlement units.
What is new then is the attitude of the outside world, of the rest of the world, to the Palestinian cause as a result of what's happened. How much further do the Palestinians intend to go? And very briefly, there's talk that other United Nations agencies will get similar requests for recognition. Is that likely to be the next step?
Honestly, I have absolutely no indication, no information, and no instruction for the time being of having other ambassadors going to ask for membership in other agencies. But the question is not in the agencies. The question is in the center. What will the US do if either in the Security Council or the General Assembly Palestine is admitted in New York? Are they going to punish the UN before talking about the agencies? Are they going, for example, to leave the Security Council? I don't think so. So my feeling, I might be wrong, my feeling is, and you'll see, they are going to work now in UNESCO and in other places in order to find a legal way to stop the implementation of this law.
Elias Hambar, thanks very much for having been our guest today. That brings us to the end of today's interview. We'll be back, though, very soon for another. Do stay with us on France 24.